Okay, thank you. Welcome back. It's all very exciting. So I didn't get a chance to play the video. So when I said one of the first things I did with AI was started creating content, those of you who follow me on LinkedIn, I put out all the stats around youth empowerment and the fact that we just seem to have forgotten about developing youth infrastructure over the last 10 years. I would create a video with it. If I press a button on the side here, it says.
Up and down.
Down? This is one of the ones I created.
I want you, I need you, go by. Don't take these beautiful things that I've got. Please stay. I want you, I need you, oh God. Don't take these beautiful things that I've got.
So that was just a picture of, that was literally just Christine, my partner, took a picture of me in my living room and then overlaid, I can't remember what the technology, it's on Discord, one of these video creator Discord chats, which is very weird when you see what people are trying to create themselves in there. But anyway, that was the bit I couldn't show you earlier. So we're going to get into some panel discussions now. So I'd like to invite my panellists on how AI is impacting personal life. So can I invite Lorraine Cannon, Brad Rumble, Zion Ayakuna, I got you, James Lana, and not Mike, which I learned earlier, but Neil. Thank you very much. Give him a round of applause, please. Just waiting for a connection, there we go. Okay, so if we can do, I've done a really terrible introduction for you, so if you can just introduce yourselves, and then we'll get into some of the questions. And we will try to get to a position where we want to involve you all. So I've got some really curious questions for these guys, but if you've got questions, please just put your hand up and I'll come to you. All right, so I'd like to introduce yourself and pass it on.
Hello, I'm James Lana. I'm a Senior Lecturer Practitioner in Computer Science here at ARU Peterborough. Been here since we opened. And been doing this teaching lark for about 26 years now.
Sorry.
Hello guys, I'm Zion Ayakunu. I'm just recently part of the management of St. Neots Initiative and just recently a graduate from ARU, studied Masters in International Business.
Hello, I'm Lorraine and I am a HR Director. I've been in HR for over 30 years. I know, it was a long time. But yes,
Sorry.
I deal with people. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to today. So yes, and my business is called Fig HR.
I'm Brad, I'm that weirdo that spoke about 20 minutes ago.
And I'm sorry I'm on immediately after being on.
If you can keep the mic down the ends there, we'll kick off with you. So to start with education, since we're currently in an education facility. So what AI tools have really wowed you in education, and how do we make sure that they're helping everyone and not just the few?
I think, well, I touched on education in my talk, and I think, and my wife is also a teacher, so she sees how kids are. I guess, it's challenging because they don't probe, they don't push, they don't ask beyond the first page of Google. Although my youngest kids are telling, don't use the word Google, they use search up, so the schools are kind of non-branding themselves, so it's like, okay, I'm going to search this up. Can you Google? That makes you sound so old, Dad, you're talking about Google. But I think there hasn't really been too much that's kind of wowed me in the stuff that I've seen from my kids, but I think in kind of how we can use the technology to learn and teach them as individuals, I think is beginning to come. There's some things happening in healthcare where they're doing that, such as I think this wonderful one that I saw where a chaplain invented an app to help people get over stammering, and it was unique for everybody because it was basically teaching them how to speak again. So I guess in a certain way that is education, but the fact that you'll be able to give hyper-personalised education and to know people's story, and then with education being able to then draw it together for the teachers so that you're aware of somebody's whole story. and you can actually build and move past things, because we're so much more aware of things with learning difficulties as well. My eldest son has ADHD, and being able to be aware of that and spread that so that the people-to-people experiences are better. I think those are things to be excited about.
Okay, great. Can you pass to Zion? So Zion, no, I know. Well, I gathered that from earlier. But Zion, you've just literally you were here, you just left here, you're back immediately, which is, I think a good sign.
The thing is, when I came here, first of all, I had the opportunity to go on a Pecha presentation about the future of education. So we talked about from the hieroglyphs in Egyptian era down to ARU now, that has more screens and glass than actual books in the library upstairs. And that's a modern education system that we've come into now. And now, the future of education, which is going into VR, AR, and so many like that. Now, AI is going to really redefine education. That education will no more be about knowledge gathering and knowledge accumulation. It's now be about critical thinking and trying to find the links between knowledge, find the association between knowledge. So, and I use a lot of AI. Sorry, lecturers AI, but I use a lot of AI. But I still come out one of the best, not because I just use AI as a friend. I use it as a tool, as it has been mentioned previously. There is Grammarly that I used for writing, for grammar writing. There is the ChatGPT that helps me search the stream of information online for the general knowledge, which I would then bring together and try to find the links between the old knowledge online and the new knowledge, to try to get to that point of my maybe research questions and all that. So yeah, AI is a critical tool in education, and it will continue to be that.
Okay, you've got to say something.
Yeah, I need to
defend yourself.
It's actually a real challenge for educators. Me and Hugh over there, we've been through this. Went through the internet becoming a big thing and search engines, and AI is having that same impact on whether the work that's produced by students is the students' work or whether it's generated by AI. Yeah, that's been incredibly difficult. So what we have to do as educators is think about how we assess now and how we kind of work with our students to make sure they use AI as a tool to learn, not as a tool to get through assignments. And, some of the things that we're doing there, is changing the assessment tasks. So my background is software engineering, so rather than write me a program that does X, Y, Z, it's write me a program, but then the grades are based on talking through how they came to write that program, what the code means, and any techniques they've used. So yeah, it's been quite challenging. This year particularly is when it's all kind of kicked off, and we've had to really think about what we're doing.
That's good. I'm sure it's good to know for everyone. So going now over to Brad, so I want to talk about creativity. And co-creation, because I've seen it now. I don't think it'll be very long. I'm not sure what platform it is, Netflix or one of the other ones, where they're saying that we can all watch the same program, but you can co-create the experience. So the main character could in fact be you. So take that silly little video that I did, and we're watching you live through your favourite pro Star Wars or whatever. You said cyberpunk, but more I suppose future of arts. You talked about AI being a partner, and you spoke quite emotionally about the relationship you have with AI. Do you see that's an opportunity for the future of culture and arts, and how can you co-create with AI?
So for me, I think creative and art is all about telling that human story. And once we start getting into, say, filmmaking, for instance, there's going to be so many stories that are now going to be able to be told simply because somebody can just generate the story. Obviously, to build the whole, if there's to make like a feature-length movie, that's going to take a lot of effort, but to be able to be like, right, we're going to use this character, like they might be able to draw out or generate it with 3D modelling, say, then you're just like, right, this is the seed, let's have this character in this particular scene. It's going to take X amount of like renders to then create like the full story. So even though the AI is the collaborator, like it's creating the work itself, the story is the human element to it. I think that's the crucial part of any artistic endeavour, is the human story.
And do you just see that as a differentiator in the market? Like, because you're about to go into, well, you're like Zion, you're just finishing up at university. You're going to go. I asked you outside. I was like, what are you going to do next then? Because you're a fascinating person. So, what, are you excited by that as an opportunity from a market perspective?
Yeah, I think so. I'm working with a Peterborough-based artist called Metageist, who he works with NFTs, and you was mentioning about that personalisation of like having yourself within the film, within the entertainment, and then now that's the only way to really implement that is through the use of NFTs. So if you have a particular model that's based on a character like wearing a certain armour or a certain skin, the NFT would then be, you'd be able to import it into Fortnite, you'd be able to import it into Gears of War or any other video game, or even Game of Thrones if you wanted to. You could have like, weird characters in Game of Thrones. What was the question again?
I think you've digressed enough. So segue the mic to the right hand side, because sticking to that, you talked a lot around vision and branding, and I mean you probably have the prettiest slides I've ever seen, which would make sense given your background. But in terms of brands, so new brands coming through over the next kind of 5-6 years, we're going to see so much user based. So I think Simon Sinek was always about why. It would start with why, and I've heard Simon Sinek speaking recently, saying that actually there's another layer now. That's the who, and you kept reminding us of saying, well, who's it for? What are values? Do you see any drastic change? Are you worried about that? Are you excited by it?
I just actually touching back on the previous question, I think a very quick thing that I use is we look back in history and people's artistic response to technology. The invention of the camera. A lot of artists were going, well, we spent our lives trying to work out how to paint the most realistic pictures and then send them around the world to re-represent. But what happened? We invented Impressionism. We decided that the role of the artist was actually to create something different, to create a human sort of expression of the moment, of the feelings, of the depths, because the role of the artist changed. And I think that's the most exciting thing about AI, is what is our creative response to AI going to be? So the fantastic things that Brad's doing, he's kind of like, he's seen through it and beyond it, which is great. I think in regards to brands, I have faith, I'm positive, because I think we're already seeing through the layer that can be AI. And when AI gets really intelligent, it will actually be able to tell a story. And I feel that people are so interested in the origin story, because if you bring AI but then you actually see what social media has done, you see the things that are happening with sustainability, farm to fork, and these kind of things. We want community, we want to know responsibility, we want to know where something has come from, how it's been produced, how it's been, so that there are all of these other things happening at the same time that we've got to look holistically to. And I feel that with that more holistic view, I'm positive that the brands that are doing it right and who are transparent and care about communities and have a good story to tell will be the ones that succeed, and the ones that are just there to make the money, we won't use them.
Great, I'm happy with that. Well, optimist as well. Okay, so to you, Lorraine, so we're going to bring on to, HR, 30 years of HR, talking about work-life balance being a thing that was branded. I'm sure HR created that one. I like the work-life blend personally as an entrepreneur. So how do you think, so as AI takes more of our tasks, both personal life and in work, do you think that will give us a better work-life balance?
I do, because there are so many resources out there that can sort of automate a lot of the things that you do. Just things like any apps. I mean, if you look at my phone, I've got an app for just about everything. So I am a complete and utter IT geeky kind of anything that's going to make my life easier. So I really feel like it does. You know, Better Sleep app is great. I've been using that recently and I've been sleeping so much better. Lots of different areas, but just also in the way that, you know, if we go back to COVID times, when really a lot of people were forced to use a lot of digital methods, a lot of businesses were, but a lot of people were, who weren't really sort of au fait with all of that. And that really sort of generated a lot of kind of buzz around that, and people started then exploring other methods of how to have that work-life balance, that blend. How can I sort of switch off, and also how can I actually connect with my friends, my family. You know, if you remember, and it feels like an age ago, we, during that time, where we had to stay away from each other, you know, we were like trying to connect with our family and friends. I remember using Alexa as for my mum, because she lived on her own. And so we used to get her to ask Alexa to call us. Ask Alexa some questions if she was feeling, you know, down. So all of those things helped, I think. And I think, so to answer your question, I think really, yeah, it does help. It's not for everybody, I know. Some people don't like that change. But for me, I'm completely for it. And I think the future is bright.
Okay, nice. We've got a whole panel of optimists. Everyone was really optimistic about AI in here. It's great. It's good. That's why we're here, right? So, okay. So on to Zion. So I want to touch on some of the work that you're doing with St Neots Initiative. So bring it to a community level. You recently, you joined, I don't know how long ago, and now you're in the management group, which is great to see. You're working on a project at the moment to really help the town map the ecosystem of the town. How is AI going to help you achieve that, and how could you have possibly done that before AI?
Yeah, so I'm going to start this way. The two benefits of AI, one of them is time. It shrinks the time to do something. You know, it shrinks it so much. And it's just like any technology. I was coming from Cambridge right here, and I could have walked. It's just take one day. And I could have used the chariot. That's just 14 hours. But it was 48 hours from Cambridge here. That's 48 minutes.
Public transport's got a lot.
So we started this ambitious project to list all the stakeholders in St Neots and create a cloud of network among stakeholders. So we have businesses, about 2,000 businesses and more. We have community stakeholders, community groups. We have politicians and policymakers and general citizens and students. So we were trying to have a network cloud where we would have a complete picture of St Neots and then have that aerial view of everyone. So we'll be able to pinpoint the site of collaboration and the site of need. So the site of opportunities as well. So if we're able to, now the question is, if we're able to, you know, have all stakeholders listed and take the accurate data of all stakeholders and then find the actual areas where those data meet and solve a problem. So we'll be able to understand many more things about ourselves, starting from St Neots, then to the other part of England, of the world. And what we're trying to do, first of all, is to use the AI system to find the links, the best links between data, the best links between stakeholders, and then use it as well as an interface for our database. So we're currently working with some companies in Cambridge, like Kinabase, that has helped us, given us the opportunity to use their database and also their AI interface to help us. So what we're trying to do now is to completely have that framework of link using the AI system and also using our intelligence, and then feed that database with so much data so that when anybody can come in anywhere and say, okay, I'm starting a business today and I don't know what to do. So we'd look into St. Neots database and find where is the population density, where young people concentrated in St. Neots, what sort of industry does St. Neots prospers in the most, that's construction, manufacturing, and also several other questions that would give the accurate advantage to any business that is starting, or even right now for August we're trying to complete an happiness index that is completely different to the conventional happiness index. And with that, we're trying to justify every data we have. So taking indices from contentment, from satisfaction, from freedom of young people, of older generations, and all those coming together using the AI as a link to find us, to help us justify every indices we have. You know, that's one power of AI that we're currently utilizing this thing yet.
Wow. So now talk about just to round that off, the time frame. So that sounds like a massive thing. So you do a massive data ecosystem map of a town, and then connect every stakeholder to opportunity. So time span. When did you start that project, and when would it be finished?
The answer of when it will be finished would not be answered.
Damn it! Sorry, get on camera.
Because it's going to be completely reiterative.
In terms of spinning up the model,
we're having a live model. So by August, we're hoping to have an happiness index done and a business economic index done. And we started just a few weeks ago, actually about 3 weeks ago now. Yeah, because so right now we've had conversations with some stakeholders, some businesses to help us. We've had team members come together, and through using AI, that I don't have to go to the lawyer, for example, to ask what are the things I need to know about ethics and all that. I have the AI system that's going to generate all those data for me. I don't need to go into to a web developer or a programmer. I have some knowledge of Python, so I could easily go to the AI and ask some technical questions that are going to help on that as well. So it helps a lot with general knowledge that helps the time shrinkage to achieve things faster.
Awesome, fantastic. Okay, coming back to you, Lorraine, talk about accessibility, and then we'll come to some questions in the audience. So, digital inclusion is a particular passion of mine. You can see the links between food poverty and digital inclusion. This is ultimately, if we haven't got access to the digital, let alone the education and understanding through these sort of conversations, but from an accessibility point of view, do you see how AI technologies have been seen to truly enhance accessibility, and how can we get the solution out to people that actually need that?
Well, we've already seen so far with the different accessibility tools in terms of for people who have limited either mobility or or are unable to have their voice, so that text to speech is a really we've seen that more and more this past week really with in the news, but it's those kind of projects and resources which medically are being used now to actually enhance and able to give individuals that accessibility. So if you're if you're unable to if you've got problems in any kind of disability, and you're able to there's lots of different tools out there. I can't think of one right now, they've all gone up my head.
Otter.
Yeah.
I love Otter.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, that's really good. But there's so many different ones out there that actually you could just and again put into it out, how can I help myself in, and it's ask that question and it will come up with a number of different solutions. But yeah, I think the accessibility bit is really important. So it's just really talking about those things. There's lots of software companies out there who are actually providing these tools and actually doing lots of testing and really working with organisations to actually test these out on actual real life situations, and I think that helps an awful lot.
Nice. Sam, so Sam, who I mentioned earlier, who's our CEO, he doesn't do emails. He hates emails, and he also has now started sending his Otter AI note taker to meetings without him. So I'll turn up to these meetings, I'll just see Sam's Otter AI, which is just taking notes for him, and then he picks it up later. I have to apologise on behalf. Is there going to be a future? I'll finish this question to David. Is there a future where we've got AIs having meetings for us with each other? Because I would love that. I bet you, as a teacher, have a lot of meetings.
I have a lot of meetings. I'd love not to go to them as well. So, can AIs have meetings? Yeah, certainly they can. But I don't know whether that's quite the way we should be going or will be going in the future. I like the idea of setting an AI along to take notes. Okay, so that does save a role or save somebody time. But yeah, I think AI's got to be used as a tool to help, not to take away the human aspect. I've been in a lot of meetings where you spend hour upon hour making no decisions. Yeah, great, send AI, yeah. But there's also those types of meetings where you kind of need that human contact.
Bring it back to humanity. Well done. Well done. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yeah, Richard. Yeah, good to see you, by the way. I didn't see you. You doing?
I'll do the Roman now.
Save my voice a little bit. My name is Richard Wisher. I'm an enterprise advisor in terms of careers, but I'm also an AI geek. I've been doing it for a long time. I wrote my first book about 10 years ago on generative AI, so I'm heavily into that world. And I see it really as two bits. There's the bit where the users of AI, how are we going to use it, how is it going to affect our lives, which I think is like the session here today. And the other bit is how are we going to build AI. So I actually build generative AI with Google, and I use the open source Gemma model to do it, so I'm heavily into that side of it. And using AI to generate code. So I generated, before coming here, I said, I've been working on a project with some kids in Orton Library. My code club, I've been running it for 7 years. They're going to be doing some HTML using a new thing from Raspberry Pi at the weekend. So I've been playing with that all week trying to get it to work. And it's really good, it works. But then on the way here, before I got in the car, I was tying up shoelaces, I said, okay, Gemini, tell me how to generate this AI code, HTML, to do this and generate a website. 2 seconds later, it gave me the code, put it into the coding side, and had it running. I had a website running in 2 minutes before I came here. So what I want you to see really is, I think it's a generation of AI with education. That's my big worry. There's no generative AI or AI taught in schools. It's not part of the national curriculum. Big mistake. But now it's de facto, it's what's happening. The pen is gone, the calculator's gone, the computer's gone. It's now AI. So we need to teach everybody to use AI, and that's going to change the world. But more importantly, we need to be generating the people who will be creating the new AI of the future. And that's my big worry. We're going to lose all these coders. Coding's going to be overtaken. There's only going to be GI architects and algorithm engineers. That's going to be the future thing. So how are we teaching that to our kids? And how are we teaching that in our schools and our places like Anglia-Ruskin University? Because that's the one skill that we do need. And it can be taught online. There's lots of ways of doing it, but it's not being taught, and that's my big worry. To give you an example, I'm an enterprise advisor for careers, and I would suggest anybody in here who's really interested contact Debbie, who leads the charge. And I'm assigned a couple of secondary schools in Peterborough where I go and I help them with their career decisions. They also do mock interviews. So in my last mock interviews, I was chatting to 7 or 8 kids coming to me saying, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I was sitting there with my phone. And my phone's got Gemini Nano on it. So I said, okay, you want to become this lad said, I want to be my dad runs a garage. And I want to become a motor engineer, but I want to work for a Formula 1 team. Okay. So I said, where do you want to work? I want to work at, what's it called? What's the big one?
Red Bull.
Red Bull. I want to work at Red Bull. So I said, okay, right, let's just sit down. So I got my phone out and said, what jobs are available at Red Bull for engineers coming out of school? And it said this. I said, okay. Then it took me to LinkedIn and then said, what sort of jobs do you want to do and that sort of thing. And I said, I want to see what jobs there are. And this job was here. I said, okay, now my AI in my phone keeps my LinkedIn profile up to date and helps me apply for jobs. So I get about 7 or 8 jobs a day. So I've, in front of this guy, in real time, in the 3 minutes we'd done all this research, and I said, that job is there. I haven't got your profile because you haven't got a LinkedIn profile, but I'll just apply for it. I applied for a job that he was looking for in 3 minutes. I had another girl who was doing football, and she wanted to become a national footballer working with the Lionesses. So I said, how do I structure my career to become a professional footballer? And what are the best contacts for the Lionesses? And she got all that. I got that, which I then gave to the teacher. So we need to teach the youngsters how to apply for jobs. Nobody does a CV anymore. Everybody's got a LinkedIn profile. All the people that are putting the jobs out are LinkedIn. Everybody in industry does LinkedIn. How do we teach the kids to do this? And it's a big issue. We've got to teach our youngsters how to apply for jobs using AI. If we don't do that, we're never going to get them across that. We're wasting our time. Sorry, it's a big thing, but
You've got an educator in the room. Yeah.
I think it's a valid point. I mean, my son's 11, so he's going up to secondary school, and in his primary school, he's not touched a computer. And AI or non-AI, computing is so important in this day and age that we should be including it in the national curriculum. And I know, once they go to secondary school, hopefully there will be some, but nothing up until that point. I think the important thing with AI and things like ChatGPT is educating our kids how to use it effectively. My opinion is to not do it for them, but to be able to sort of generate a request that gets the response they're looking for. I think along those lines, it's also important that it's not seen as a quick win or a quick way out of having to learn things. So, as you say, we're going to need people who are developing these AI tools over the next 5-10 years. Yeah? And if we haven't taught people how to program effectively, then how are they going to develop the tools if they're just relying on AI? Then you get AI developing itself, and you get the T1000, right? So we have to be really careful about how we use this as a tool as opposed to a kind of a complete solution.
Well, I think the other bit is data science. We're not really teaching data science, and data science is the data that's inside the model. So ChatGPT is just one way of getting at those models. But actually within Google, the Google system and the AI, the OpenAI system, there's like what they call a garden of models that you can use for specific things. So if you want a model for medicine, you design a specific model that ingests all the medical stuff and it becomes a medical expert. So the decision on which data to use, which models to use, is ultra important. And it's not just one or two now, there's hundreds of them about.
I was going to say, and again, sort of data, students wouldn't even touch data until they came to university. So it'd be a completely kind of necessarily something they even consider. I mean, we do data courses, do a master in data analysis, but again, that should be something that my son, in the next couple of years, should start to understand as well. But it's how we make those changes in the national curriculum.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's a much bigger topic for a whole different conference. Okay, fine, brilliant. Thank you, Richard. And I met Richard 8 years. Well, I come around here. I met Richard 8 years ago at a mastermind, which we must reconnect. His brain always explodes whenever I see it. It's amazing. Okay, yeah, question here.
Hello, Sorry, Rosie, I work for Savills, so I'm in real estate, but it's not a real estate-based question. I'm just questioning, particularly for Zion, about with your model, how much time do you have to balance sort of validating the data versus sort of producing it, in terms of you're not getting the wrong outputs? How do you trust it, I suppose? I'm not a technical expert, but just be intrigued to know how you're sort of knowing it's correct, if you like. Thank you.
So the data there is reiterative. We're open to build a live data system rather than scraping from the internet, because mostly the data in the internet are usually old data. So we're open to have a framework where we would have live data, primary data from people. So that system where anyone can go to, and perhaps it will be discussed more in a more, what's that word now? In a more, let me skip that for now, but it's a business word that somehow skip my mind. But it's a live data that people would continue to feed into, and then a live database rather that people will continue to feed into, and then it will all the policy system and the initiative strategy that we'll be having soon yet. So that will be our approach to validity.
Nice, okay. Yeah, okay, another question? Yeah.
I guess I'll try and speak for those that aren't in the room. We seem to have a very optimistic and very tech-focused audience here. Not to bring it down, but I'm conscious that as the application of AI improves and accelerates, there's a risk that a proportion of society gets left out or behind. So I just wonder, with your collective experiences, what your views are on that, and what should we be doing or thinking about to make sure that we don't create an even larger digital divide.
We can, if everyone can respond, this could be the last question. If everyone can respond, so that's a perfect way to wrap up. Well done. Zion, you start, or Zion, start. Go.
Yeah, and that links to what Richard has just mentioned about education. And one example of that is the Python you mentioned, the data analysis and programming you mentioned. Right, so there are many people that still don't understand how programming came to be, how we program things. Meanwhile, jumping into that now is so tedious, especially for young people, for students. It's so that divide is widened already. So our approach now, or what I would advise or recommend, is two things. Note two things. AI is a time shrinker; it shrinks time, and also to consider that AI is a tool that can easily create that divide. So we need to now use education to bring people, that's like, sorry to, you want to say something, but...
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
That's building on what you just said. I'm doing a project with a school in Peterborough at Orton Bushfield Academy. And they asked me to come in and help with a STEM event, the STEM thing that they had. And they were getting a balloon, a stratospheric balloon that would go up into the stratosphere with sensors on board and take video. So I was given this task, so I couldn't get that to start off with. The balloon hadn't arrived, so I set up a weather station on the roof using a Raspberry Pi Pico and sending information down onto a smartphone down in the playground. So how do I attack this? I'm an enterprise advisor, a STEM ambassador going into a school, not really knowing the subject that I'm talking about. So first thing I did on the car on the way up, I heard that the government were putting money into education, AI, to do first of all, lesson planning. So I said, okay, AI, give me a lesson plan for teaching stratospheric balloons to a school in Peterborough. And I got back all the information. And then I said, give me a question and answer on meteorology, micrometeorology for a session that I'm taking. And now give me a project plan to get a balloon launched in so many weeks, and give me what I've got to do for the software on that balloon. So it gave me everything. It gave me the software in Python that I could then load up onto the Pico. I was able to get question and answer. How do we get permission to fly a weather balloon out of Peterborough? Asked it, got the answer, got the form, got how to fill in the form. Just speaking to my phone. So why can teachers not pick that up? So you become really an expert without being...
That's another conference. But that's an interesting one, and that's something that I believe ARU is doing. So we're working towards a co-creation program where students are also going to co-create their program that kind of heals that divide between studentship and career. So that kind of answers that
Briefly.
So last words from each speakers, if you wouldn't mind.
I think in answer to your question is, yeah, we're not always being positive about it, but I've realised, I mean, I don't use AI yet in terms of what I do in my HR as yet. I might do. However, I realise that I've been using AI for years in all the various different things that we do. So it's there already, and it's been around for such a long time, but we're actually just now figuring out how we actually use it productively for us. So it's not always been positive.
It's about the digital divide, right? Make it fun. Like my office at home, it's pretty much like a rave. Like I've got a standing desk, I've got my 2 screens, all my keyboards and everything light up. I put Psytrance or Techno on, and I'm there like coding away. And so it makes it more fun. You're not like just set at a computer.
No, this is boring.
Yeah, just make it more fun. Like if you knew like what goes into making this particular outcome as well, it's just like, yeah, code's just cool, man. Like, but yeah, I'm biased. So.
I don't see technology will leave people behind. I mean, the weak link in the technology chain is people, because it's people who make the decisions with technology that choose to leave them behind. Similarly to talking about education and teaching, it's not the teacher's fault. We shouldn't, and we also kind of say, well, why aren't you teaching this? This is important now. But by the time these kids graduate and move from, that won't be important. What we need to teach kids is how to learn. We need to teach them how to communicate. We need to teach them how to ask questions, to be curious. Because if you look at, say, the World Economic Forum list of the skills that people need, I always revert back to that, going, okay, what are the skills, the powers, the ways of thinking we need to give, and let's not get tied up in the here and now of being able to program, be able to design, be able to UX, build apps, whatever. We've been through all of those. Learn the lessons, say it's actually we need to teach people how to be better people, to live together better, and to communicate better. And if we do that, we'll be able to make the best of every bit of technology that we managed to invent.
And I was going to say just what Brad was saying, yeah, make it fun. And I think plenty of institutions like us, like other universities, it's our obligation to make sure that the kind of education system, not just at university level but at secondary and primary level, kind of carries this on and actually takes up this mantle. So.
Brilliant. We have to wrap up now. That could have gone, I mean, maybe in the pub later we can continue this conversation. There's definitely an unofficial pub visit afterwards. You didn't mention that earlier, but there's a few of us that are kind of eyeing up a beer after this, so maybe this conversation. Can we give these wonderful people a round of applause? Okay, I'm going to hand over now. Trish's turn. Am I finished now? Am I out? Have I been expelled?
Still going to be around.
Okay, I'm hanging around, but yeah, thank you. Over to you, right?
Do that first. Right, hello, and welcome to panel number 2. So we're going to talk about how AI is disrupting the world of work, and how awesome has this afternoon been. I've enjoyed just listening to everyone's perspectives, Brad's giving me up, finding out that Brad's office is the place that I want to be. Sounds freaking amazing. And being able to talk about Terminator and Skynet stuff in a professional setting. I'm loving this. Right, so my panel, as I say, it's about HR, well, how AI is disrupting the world of work. So, can I invite up Lucy, James, rounds of applause please as well, people are getting up and and we'll do the same as we did previously, so we'll get everyone to just introduce themselves briefly.
Lost mic.
I don't know, where's he gone?
Got to have a mic.
Oh.
So feel free to get up and jump about. It's been quite a lot of sitting just doing that. Come on, get energised.
Do you know
Back up
what?
again.
I feel like Mike's got the personality where he can just join in. So
We'll answer anyone's question.
yeah, well, yeah, it'll be all good. So do you want to start off with just introducing yourselves, and then we'll get into the questions?
I'm Bill.
What we do is
He's in charge, he should have told me.
it's all right, fashionably late, it's all good. we'll do is we've got a few kind of standard questions that I'm going to ask you. I'm going to read them off my phone, and then we'll throw out to the audience for all of that kind of delicious discussion. Okay, so do you want to pass the mic down to say hello, and then we'll start with questions?
Yeah, hello, I'm James.
Checking who you are.
Yeah, just got to confirm. Depending on which AI I've decided to be on today. I'm James. I haven't actually been in the HR world that long before. I've had a very squiggly career, if that's something that people are familiar with or haven't heard of before. I have to explain it. But basically, I originally started as an educator, then I worked in, lo and behold, OCR, for those that remember it or dislike it. I was one of those people. Then I've worked in the civil service, and then more lastly, I've worked in car technology as a project manager, and then weirdly transitioned from the world of tech to people, which is an unusual change. So I think we'll probably get into that later.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I've just stepped out of a 35-year corporate career into my own business. I've worked for some fabulous brands, starting with Tesco, Barclays, Boo, Hey Birkin. And then went to work for TUI Travel, which was amazing. Argos, recognised the background to the slides, by the way. And then finished up as Chief People Officer at Card Factory, which is Europe's biggest card manufacturer. And then did a stint at British Retail Consortium. So as you can see, I've been in retail all my career. And now I'm doing my own thing, helping HR talent.
Hi there, I'm Archie. First of all, massive shout out to Bill for the picture he decided to use for me. Thanks, Bill. Cheers for that. Everyone else gets a lovely headshot. It's outside the garden. It's a great shout from mine as well. I'm the head of content at Atlas SEO. It's a digital marketing and SEO agency based out of Norwich. It's pretty much all you need to know about me. I like the pub, hence the picture. I like SEO enough, maybe it pays. So it's pretty good. Most of us were passionate about it.
I was just slightly distracted. I'm Mike, I was here earlier. Slightly distracted. Archie smells incredible. It's a really, really so lovely. So, obviously you heard me speak earlier about the SEO side and AI and stuff that I'm putting on. For 8 years, I was the commercial director for a training and development company, working with large businesses for rolling things out. So that's where I wear my HR hat. So I will wear, as much as I work for Samfire, who are a digital marketing SEO agency in Norwich. I think you just said. Yeah. I've got multiple hats and multiple career pathways, so I can talk about both sides of things.
Awesome. Now, as you've got the mic, I'm dying to say that. We'll start off with the first question that I've got, and it's a general one, just to kind of ease us all in. So, how would you say AI has disrupted the world of work in recent years?
Well, that's actually interesting enough. So when we were in Norwich, we talked about this, and it's actually developed more in the months since. It's getting rid of the crap work you don't want to do, and making it so, obviously you talked about critical thinking, we keep talking about critical thinking, talk about strategic movement in the world of marketing, picking apart what works, where you should be going, directions in the world of HR, removing awful skill assessment barriers and such like that, where basics should not be a barrier to hiring intelligent, talented, creative people. I have never in my life understood what a semicolon was, and that should not stop me getting a job. Someone tried to explain it once, don't care. It's like the way you use English, the way you do math, the way you interpret things in terms of the basic everyday things that you did at Key Stage 2 shouldn't affect your ability to be in a job, and AI removes those from that assessment. It takes away crap things. If you want to hold on to doing spreadsheets like I do, because I think they bring me sanity, you can, but you can also choose to feed them into a system to do it. And that to me is the main thing. It's taking away the, as my dad would say, the grunt work, and letting you be creative, letting you be intelligent, letting you be strategic, and let the computers do the other stuff.
Awesome. Archie, there was a lot of nodding there. Do you want to jump in on that too?
A semicolon was used to replace a conjunctive in a sentence.
No.
Don't worry about it. So the last panel was obviously very lovely and optimistic, so I thought I'd be cynical and miserable a little bit for this one. Largely though, completely agree. Absolutely, it cuts out a lot of the scut work. it's really great. Like if you've got a repetitive task that just needs doing 6,000 times, you don't have to do it anymore. Fantastic. What I would say in terms of how it's disrupting work in possibly a negative way is there's a lack of trust that's being built up, I think, between people now. And we get this a lot in our job, particularly because we work with written content a lot. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but ChatGPT does that quite well and very quickly and very cheaply, more importantly. And our clients don't want that kind of stuff. They just don't. It's not what they've asked for, it's not what they paid for, it's not what they've requested. So we then have to try and play a game of, are you lying to us with our writers? And are you lying to us is not a fun game to play with people that you quite like. So it is great in that it removes a lot of scut work, but there are ways that it can negatively impact the world of work, and we do need to be aware of those moving forward. It's not all, green everywhere. Grass is always greener on the other side, and the other side in this case for me is about 5 years ago when no one knew what ChatGPT was, because my job was so much easier.
Okay. I guess segueing from that question then, and also the question you used, I'm going to put that much made its way there. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the fears that employers and employees have with using kind of AI. So from my personal experience, I had a robust discussion with a line manager recently where they decided to take some employment law advice from ChatGPT. And obviously, the information that you put in informs the information that you get out. The answer that he got out, not the right answer, and what he chose to do was awful. So I'm still super optimistic about AI, but actually I'm a little bit fearful of it because of maybe people not using it in the way that they should. So what would you say are some of the biggest fears that maybe employers or employees might have about using AI?
Yeah, so my favourite reference is retail, as you can probably gather by where I've worked. And if you didn't all work in retail or hospitality when you left school, and your kids don't, then you absolutely know someone who does. Many of those tasks are going to be taken over by AI in the future. So one of our partners at the British Retail Consortium was an American company who just put cameras in all of Walmart stores to try and cut down on the amount of people shelf filling on the shop floor, because it's watching everything that the customers are doing, and it's taking half the workforce off the shop floor, and the half the remaining are filling the shelves at the right time with the right product. So the retail workforce in stores is worried, right? It really is worried. And the guy who said he goes out to stores, yeah, you're going to have less store visits, I think, in the future. So in retail, it is a concern, as it is in hospitality and leisure as well, some of those jobs.
Just to add to that as well, so we work with Home Bargains, and they are currently working on their new distribution centre, and it's 90% AI. So it's all going to work on tracks, and it's going to pick everything itself. And really and truthfully, the only thing in the whole warehouse, which is 1 million square foot, that will be man-operated, will be the fragile bits.
And that's the Ocado model, right? So the Ocado, I'm very geeky when it comes to warehousing, but the Ocado smart grid is incredible. Look it up on YouTube. But again, the only people in those warehouses are programmers. So the jobs will change, people in retail are worried, employers like HR directors are head scratching to say, how do I take 100,000 workforce and pivot it, that's a word we all learnt during COVID, pivot it to be a workforce of these incredible minds and talent that use AI as a really useful tool for productivity and to grow the business. So that is one.
Well, if you want me to add to that, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to add. I guess to the earlier point, it's the piece we're talking about, really the ability in education and actually just life in general about being adaptable to reskill and or upskill to the changing world that exists around us. And whether that be, I think, was it Neil, your slide about mining, or I can't remember who had mining, but it's that piece, and I think various films have encapsulated it with the change from someone was originally on the manufacturing line building their particular part of a model toy, and then the machine took over, but that person learned to then be the person that maintained and serviced the robotics, to now the point where there are fewer people doing the servicing, and maintenance is now becoming one person rather than the 10 or 15 it used to be. And for us, it's remodelling the world of work to understand that that is now going to become far more normalised, that your job will not be the same as it was when you started in the world of work. You won't just progress to become the team manager looking after the people that are doing exactly the same role, but actually you're going to need to reskill and upskill, not just in becoming a manager and learning about kind of managerial responsibilities, but potentially your entire job will change multiple times through your life. I think probably one thing to add is there's a good point that I think it's Dan Pink, who's a similar kind of famous person to some extent, talks about mastery. So to your point, hospitality, if you are looking for just getting your food quickly, so McDonald's, you used to wait in a queue to get to the front to then be able to get your burger. Now you kind of use the app and literally arrive and collect it, or you use those kind of quick checkout things. But there will still be people that, even though they know there are going to be chefs that can create their pasta ragu deliciously, will still take the time to make that at home for themselves. And it'll be the same in other industries where you can get automation to do things quickly, and for those tasks that are made mostly repetitive. But for the things where you're trying to get an experience or an enjoyment out of it, then there will still be space. But I think to Neil's point, you'll really have to be authentic about why you're doing it and for who you're doing it for.
Awesome. So sticking with the same question, Mike, you started talking about kind of skills bases and kind of all that kind of good stuff that probably links to this question. So what kind of fears do you think employers might have about AI?
I think from an employee standpoint, it's going to be, and we've seen it in some areas, you're having an argument with AI because you have to express that you, through your experience and your understanding and brain, know better than the computer and its access to infinite amounts of knowledge. And instead of, we've all been in a room, some of us more than others, where we have disagreed with colleagues and peers, and we've been able to argue and express our point. If you are sitting there with the computer says this and I agree with what the computer says, are you trying to tell me you're smarter than the entire libraries of Mesopotamia? Then you're starting on a back foot, because you either have to become very egotistical very quickly, or you need to be able to demonstrate that you have to demonstrate your worth. Like I did hospitality as a background. My mum forced me into it at 13 and I stayed there for a long time. Bartending around the world, there's a difference between getting your cocktail from Tim Martin's JD Witherspoon's to getting it from Lab or Swift or some of the best cocktail bars in the world. It's that level of expertise. But if you don't know about cocktails, a cheeky Vimto is a cheeky Vimto. It doesn't matter where you get it from, but the difference between a Irish coffee from Swift Bar and an Irish coffee from Cozy Club is worlds apart if you know what you're drinking. So that's the level of mastery you're talking about when you go down to hospitality. If you apply that up the ranks, if you program a GPT to spit out a business strategy, on paper that business strategy can look absolutely phenomenal. You put it to anybody in this room who's got experience in business and they could probably tear it apart in 15 seconds. Same with HR planning, same with anything like that. But the technology is still giving the answer. And if somebody in your organisation at a senior level just wants the answer, it's a lot less combative than a person who knows what they're talking about and gives them what they want to hear. So we were having a chat outside about confirmation bias. If you can go, I want to hear this information, please give it back to me, that's very worrying. Yes, there's worries at a lower manual level, but there's worries at a strategic level as well, because you're fighting against all of the information. You're fighting the matrix. That's what it feels like.
I'm loving the Matrix reference as well. How have we not managed that so far? All right, so next question. We're going to start off with Lucy and then kind of move it around. How would you see, or how do you see AI disrupting the job market? We started talking about kind of squiggly careers, but how do you see it impacting and shaping the job market?
So when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking, how do we, coming from an industry that is not sexy, to the big minds that are leaving university, Zion, I'm sure you never ever thought, I really want to go and work for Sainsbury's because that's just the place to be. I mean, it's not, retail, hospitality don't tend to be there are exceptions, industries of choice for the brightest minds. So I was thinking about this, and I think one of the things that I would be worrying about if I was still a CPO is how do I attract these wonderful minds that we've heard from today into retail? Because it ain't sexy. And the thing that I think all of our businesses need to have in common in the future is a diverse leadership team. You need to look up and see people that inspire you, that you can respect. You need to be able to see yourself in your leadership team. And so, too many of our businesses, and I talk about retail here, still don't have diverse boards, still don't have diverse leadership teams. The array of neurodivergence here has been an absolute joy to see today. And still we don't even look at neurodivergence in our boards when we're collecting data. You know, we've just got to ethnicity and to gender, right? So I think in order to inspire the next generation of great minds, we need to do a lot on our senior leadership boards. And then the job market per se, I think for me it goes back to where are these people coming from, which is a debate we just had in the previous panel. Are the people, all the people we need coming out of university, are they coming onto the jobs market? There just aren't enough. So it takes you back to the conversation we had about what we're teaching in schools, what are we teaching in colleges, where are all these wonderful minds coming from?
Awesome, thank you. And James, any thoughts from you?
It's an interesting one. I probably wouldn't be in my job if it was entirely selected for by AI, because I don't have 10, 20, 30 years in the HR space. But I was given a chance by those above me in the HR function because they saw, or I believe that's what they told me, they saw attitudes and behaviours and characteristics. And those are the things that are far harder to teach, and I think that that's where moving away from education about being teaching and more facilitating and aiding and enabling learners in that kind of guise, then if we focus on that, then actually by being in whatever space you end up in, you can learn from others, whether that is generative AI giving you kind of a little roadmap to start things off, where you're asking peers and everything else. So I think that there is that piece of the puzzle. I think when you're getting hundreds and hundreds of applications for a single job, then it becomes very difficult, and that's the piece where I worry a little bit about, are we asking the right questions? So it's not just in the education space, but when we are seeking to recruit people, are we actually asking the right questions, or are we asking at the moment, how many years have you done this? What certification have you got in this? Versus actually asking about, well, for you, what does teamwork look like? For you, what is purpose? For you, what is making a difference in the world? Because actually that's the piece you want to ask, and it's kind of hospitality is you can ask those questions, and is, are you the kind of person that really gets fulfillment and enjoyment about seeing other people enjoy an experience? And you start going, okay, well, actually, yes, you might be incredibly, I guess, book smart, you might want to call it, but if you just apply yourself down that road, are you actually going to find your value and purpose? And actually you might find yourself going into hospitality and leisure and tourism where you get that fulfillment. And ultimately you're talking about happiness indexes, ION and stuff. The happier the world we're in, everyone else is happier. We know that. That's what recognition, appreciation and gratitude shows us time and time again. These invaluable human characteristics. I guess being the HR person, just got to throw that out there. Humanity matters.
Alright, so I'm going to go to Archie with a different question. This one focuses on ethics and bias. So how do you think we can address the ethical concerns and biases that are inherent within AI systems, particularly thinking about kind of HR and the world of work? Sorry.
I got the easy one.
Yes.
Yes, excellent.
We're all ears.
Well, sat next to two people in that chair. So. No, it's a very tricky concept, and the ethics and morality of using AI to make big decisions on behalf of other people is a bit iffy in and of itself. I know nobody really wants to be told by literally any other human being that hasn't had a shared experience with them about that thing. Why would you want a machine to do it? It's the exact same thing. There is a lot of training data bias. We know that by now. I think that's pretty well established. It definitely leans towards some slightly iffy concepts, shall we politely put it, so that I don't get in any trouble. Yeah, it's a bit of an issue. The way that we manage it, I suppose, is first of all we recognise that it's happening. That's the number one thing. Obviously, make sure everyone's educated about it, make sure that we recognise that these AI models probably aren't fully representative the way that they should be. Secondly, we work to rectify that, so we find ways around it. I am not a data scientist, nor do I have any background in being able to create any sort of AI model, so I will not get into the technical aspects of that. I know there are ways of rectifying it and ways of accounting for data that may be wrong and outliers and that kind of thing. I think in terms of what we actually do to act upon it, that's more a case of trying to make sure that everyone at every stage in your corporation recognises where the issues lie and making sure that we work through them. So, I mean, we've got HR people here. I'm sure when you have issues, and like we send someone going through and you know, asking what kind of problems do we have, how do we fix them, what's the feedback here, what should I do, and it's all wrong. Because of course it is, that's exactly what's wrong. Make sure that everyone, even to the very top, to the C-levels, knows that this is not an easy fix. Do not rely on everything that comes out of here. Do not think everything that comes out of here is completely accurate. Question it, please God, question it. It will be wrong so often when you question it. Yeah, no, that one. But yeah, I don't really have much else to add on that. I have no deep understanding of the backgrounds to it.
Brilliant answer, thank you. Does anyone else want to jump in on that before I throw that out to the audience?
I want to throw it to James because we were talking earlier about increasing the data sets. And if you increase the data sets, you address the balances.
You said that without having the mic.
I know, I'm very loud.
The thing is, I'm known for having a terrible short-term memory, so I can't even remember having a conversation.
Would you like me to repeat our conversation for you?
Do you want to just, you can throw my voice through you.
Yeah. So James and I were talking earlier, and we were talking about with biases and everything that's coming through the system. The problem with all forms of AI, as Giancarlo mentioned earlier, is it's reliant on the data sets that go into it. So if you increase the amount of inputs that are coming in from diverse areas, from other areas, and actually don't increase the panels, who's doing the programming, who's doing the elements, the more you increase the diversity of the input, the more you increase the diversity of the inputters, the more you increase the size of the data set, the more you increase the options and range of outcomes from the learning, the more you're going to, should be, maybe, I'm not a data person either, be able to address the inherent issues that are happening between it, but you can't do it unless the data's there, and the data's not going to be driven unless it's driven by the people that are being excluded from the data in the first place. So that's what we were talking about earlier. It was very insightful, John, I will say.
That's what I said.
And just one last word, and I'm sure you say this to your clients, is if you are in HR and you are starting to adopt any of these systems, for God's sake, look over your policies and make sure that you have the right data protection and data policies to cope with anything that may arise. So check, and then have the policies that safeguard it.
I think Mike summarised whatever I said earlier really well.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'll throw it out to the audience. Oh, you're very keen.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. It's really absolutely fantastic to hear everything you guys have been saying so far. My name is Orla. It's lovely to meet you. And the reason I'm here today is because I am a qualification developer, and I want to make sure that the education that we are developing, which we're going to be running out to schools and colleges and FE and all the rest of it, that is ready for the future. And so often today, I have heard many people speak to that point. You've talked about, for example, James Lana earlier said about how he's changing the assessment strategies here at ARU to make sure that really those grades aren't coming necessarily from the output, from the product, but the grades are coming from the presentations following to discuss about how those products were created and evolved. And my question really to everybody, and I would invite anybody who has an opinion on this to please come and speak to me, is what do you think we should be doing in terms of our qualifications? What should we be embedding? My I was speaking to James earlier about this, was and Neil, my concept so far really is that we should be demystifying digital, that we should be empowering people to be creative and adventurous in prompting. However, I'm a nobody, I don't know anything. You guys have your face on a panel, it's up there. So I'm thinking that maybe you guys...
We were just the ones that said yes.
Yeah. So really my question is, what is it that as a qualification developer, what is it that I can put into my qualifications to make sure that the learners who undertake these, whether they're academic or vocational, will be equipped with perhaps not necessarily the exact skill, because I foresee that to be industry specific, but with, I think, what you were talking about, James, in terms of the adaptability and the confidence to be able to approach this new way of working.
Thank you very much. That's why I was so keen.
That's a great question, by the way, and love what you do, love your work. I guess, so I put my parent hat on here, and I've been really inspired by, you know, some of the people in the room today, because my son is a creative, and like me, if you put him in front of a spreadsheet, he would just see nothing, absolutely nothing. His brain doesn't work that way. So, and it is going to be very, very hard for him to make a living as a musician, as discussed. So, I'd be curious about whether there's a separate path. You can't churn out everyone who looks and feels the same, right? So you have to have, cater for everybody. But typically we have creatives and we have sort of data and science. Typically that's the sort of brains people have. People like you have a bit of both, it sounds like, which you're lucky. But my critical thinking, I think, is the number one thing that I would say everyone should learn. Because from critical thinking and curiosity, I was always a bit disturbed that my son was never curious when he was younger. Whereas my brother, who's been highly successful, took the wheels off my pram and made a go-kart and took his watches apart, and he was like always curious about how the world works. And I'm not sure if you could teach curiosity. The educators in the room would help me with that one. But if you're not curious, you should learn at least critical thinking, would be my number one thing.
Great answer. I'll take it a different way. I think for me there's the questions around what someone wants to be for who they are. So we often get asked in the room, what do you do or who are you? And you often find yourself automatically saying, oh, I am a professor, I am an accountant, but that's not who you are. It's what you are. And I think that by moving that question and really asking someone if they respond with what their profession is, what they do for a living, and then really delving deeper into asking those questions. And if we can get people to start prompting that level of curiosity in themselves, that may help people as they mature to start figuring out what are the things that they value, what they purpose. And through that you can help facilitate them into the directions of the kinds of things they're going to be intrinsically motivated by. We're really going to have people passionate, be purposeful, be driven, be resilient, then they really want to be intrinsically motivated by what they do. So I think that's one piece. And I think the other is frequently, particularly in the marketing media, or the brands want to sell us things, and they position that as ways of demonstrating success, whether it is having an expensive car rather than a car that simply gets you from A to B, whether it's a larger house even though the house you're in is perfectly kind of sound. And I think that asking the question of what that person believes success is, I think that was a famous one, I think when I was in teaching, about teachers were asking what they wanted their secondary school children to be, and an overwhelming number of them said they wanted to be famous. No definition of what they would be famous in, but simply that they would be famous. And I think asking the question, well, what? Do you want to be a famous author, an architect, whatever it might be? What is the impact you're going to have? So I am known for what things also.
So there's two ways that I look at this. So I agree with Alex on a lot of things about kind of almost deaf to traditional education. I was lucky enough to fluke my way into higher education. I am an ARU alum still don't quite know how, but I got lucky with it because I had actually a very adaptive set of lecturers who let me go back. Basically, I was allowed to attend workshops and I didn't have to go to seminars because put me in a room where I'm not allowed to talk. It's weird, I don't like it. So I saw that side of things, but I was expelled from school. I didn't engage in school. Being undiagnosed autistic in school, nothing was made for me, nothing was practical. It was awful, and I was just luckily bounced around enough that nobody caught me, so I was able to progress. But then I actually ended up in qualification development. I've done it, so I've had the battles with IFATES on apprenticeship programs, and the one thing I always put along is, especially we were doing marketing, marketers are a weird bunch of people. None of us really fit in traditional jobs. That's why we ended up as marketers, because we were able to think on our feet and kind of all these different things. Putting them into an apprenticeship program that dictated that something had to be done a certain way was going to guarantee, and almost did, that nobody was going to complete because it wasn't made and adapted. So it was all about how could you change the approach to qualifications to match the people. If you go back to Key Stage 1 level in Finland and Scandinavian countries, they basically go, what do you like at the age of 6? I want to be a fireman. Great, we're going to work on that, and at 18 you'll be a fireman. It's a bit prescriptive, but it's the idea of don't make someone do math who doesn't want to do math and doesn't blend with math. All of those things to adapt it. So when you're building things, especially when you're using AI, you think anyone who's running apprenticeship programs, everybody has to do functional skills because the government demands it. Waste of time and a completely pointless point of exercise. Sorry if there's a functional skills provider in the room. But you could be adapting everything that you're doing to say, critical thinking, strategic thinking, how are you working in this? If you're preparing the next great world of thinkers, take away all the things that are barriers from allowing them to think. And if you can actually find a way to assess that, so it was great for me that I could just attend workshops. I had the worst set of grades for written assessments, probably because of the semicolons, but I had the highest set of grades for presentations, and I managed to get a 2-2. I switched my dissertation 4 times, wrote it in the last 2 weeks before my dissertation was submitted. Whatever, I got 2-2, I don't care, it's a degree, nobody checks. I've got 15 GCSEs and I still don't know what they are, and I've got Stuart Pearce Soccer Skills Level 2 that I got in 1997. That is also on my CV because that's how much I really care about those things. More proud of that than my degree. But AI did teach me lots of other things in life. It really helped me. Crap, actually.
I'm just going to let that rock for a second. I know we're sort of running out of time, so I'll be as didactic as I can about it, I promise. You have an incredibly painful job trying to do qualifications for something that is largely going to be based around moving everything into soft skills. It's horrendous. I feel so sorry for you. I'm sure you're going to do a wonderful job anyway, Laura. I'm sure you will. I think prompt engineering is absolutely the #1 thing that people need straight out the gate. We're actually doing this at work now. Everyone who comes in now, after they finish their probation, or sometimes even before, we pay for like an online prompt engineering course for them. We don't particularly use AI to create any of our long-form content or anything like that, but just the amount of stuff you can do with it, just cut minutes or hours over the course of weeks or months, very important. Prompt engineering is a lot more complex than people think it is. It's also something that you can learn if you sit there and learn it, so it's a really good thing to have. I think initiative, sadly, again, soft skills, sorry, not anything you can really nail. Yeah, basically, yeah. Sorry. But trying to up people's initiative will be really important going forward because there's so much you can do with this stuff. As I think Jean College demonstrated literally at the start, there's so many things that you can do, even now, that I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to pull this statistic cleanly from nowhere. But probably about 99% of people don't know or don't use anywhere near the full potential of the tools that are out there right now. May genuinely be worth having a big old list somewhere of approved tools for use in education, and being like, you know what, and life indeed. It's all good. Yeah. Education is life. You know? So we're in a university. We've got something.
Okay, so I've got time for one last question on reliably informed. So who wants the last question?
Zion, did you have your hand up?
Fight it out.
No, you go. I spoke.
So where am I going? Yeah? Okay, awesome. So I'm just conscious of time and networking and all that fun stuff, so I'm going to give you the last question and then closing thoughts from my panelists.
Thank you.
So earlier, I think Zion had said that he didn't need a lawyer, which I was greatly offended because I'm a law student here, but anyway. But from a HR perspective, you guys have mentioned a lot now that it's no longer about only the skills, because skills are a given. And so if you look at it from a lawyer's perspective, you'd think it's no longer just about advice, because advice is a given. Last week I sat with a partner actually at a firm here in Peterborough, and I asked him, well, what are you looking for in a candidate? And he had said, I was expecting him to go, I want someone who's analytical, but he had said, well, we just want somebody who has a sense of humour. And that made me feel really relieved. But as we speak today, and as I think a bit more about AI, I'm beginning to realise that actually you've now got models that are humorous. You now can make models that exhibit anger and passion. So what happens when you give AI human characteristics? That's my question.
So you're still generating human characteristics. You're not generating humans. The core essence of who we are as a human can never be replicated by. If it does, Turing test happens, we all die. I'm off. That's the element. The core of what makes us us, and you go back to hiring and hiring people. Sometimes you interview someone, and they're the person for you, the person for your company. You get that gut feeling, or they give you the ick, and you don't want to talk to them anymore. That whole element of it is a uniquely personal to person, person to business. In law, I worked with a really good youth organisation who worked with a stop and search, basically advice group for young people in London when I used to work at a youth centre. And the way that they communicated, if that was a bog standard lawyer without a sense of humour or an understanding of community or understanding there, they would have been eaten alive by that group of 15, 16-year-olds who were in that room. But they weren't, they understood, and that was very much about the person they were. So you can teach as many characteristics, you can program as much as you are, but people are inherently people, and every person is unique.
Well, I feel wholly ill-equipped to answer that question, so I'm just going to say, for sitting where I am from my experience, that empathy will always be the thing that, well, people will tell me you probably can, but I'm not sure you could teach AI how to apply empathy to a situation. And in our profession, in your profession, you needed a heap of it, always.
So, no matter the high level, the scenarios may seem the same, but every human in every situation is unique, and that will be the difference where the human comes involved. To apply that empathy, it will be the key. I guess an easy example would be, I think we're talking about handwriting instead. I would argue that handwriting is just different now, because if you write a letter to someone and it's handwritten and it comes... A letter? Oh, sorry. If you write a letter by writing it with your hand, it will mean a lot more than a letter arriving through the letterbox that's been typed out on a printer and sent across. So I think that's the takeaway, is that yes, we can use the generative AI to help us, but writing it out will be the difference.
I think just finally to throw a little bit of a curveball on that. Even if you have an AI that's coming back and appearing angry or sad or jealous, it's not. Like, it's just fundamentally not. It's not any of those emotions. It's just returning to you what it thinks is an approximation of what's right. If you take that as something we do as humans right now, which is I could send a message to one of you, and depending on the context of the message, it's completely different, my tone. Where I put my semicolon means a lot, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. But yeah, I could quite literally, the only example I can think of in my head right now involves lots of swear words, so I'm not going to say that just for the sake of being nice and professional and whatnot. But there we go, great idea is a brilliant example, because if I spoke the words great idea, I could be very sincere. I could think you have a fantastic idea. I could also be incredibly snarky. I could also be really mad at you. You've suggested something and I don't like it. Great idea. Be really annoyed. It's all very hard to tell. And we do that now as humans with text. So when AI is coming back and it is displaying these emotions, it is displaying an approximation of them. It's not actually demonstrating any of them. And again, if it ever gets to the stage where it is,
we'll go together.
We'll go together, buddy. Straight to the pub. Straight to the pub.
That was a great point.
I think I'm going to wrap it up there, unless there's any questions, but Hannah are going to be around, so if you want to ask any questions, feel free to find them. But if I can get a round of applause for our lovely panel. Handing back to you.
Yeah, that's just very quick. Thanks to our panelists. I don't know where Bill. Oh, there it is, Bill. Come on. Otherwise, I'm always doing all my own. Well, thank you, everyone. In particular, the ones that resisted up to now. You know, I can see that everyone lasted, but yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for everyone for your questions. Thank you to the panelists, the speakers, to Bill for organizing with me everything else, to ARU, and yeah, I don't know. Am I forgetting everyone to say thank you to?
Jane Collar didn't mention I was also his driver today, an hour and 40 minutes in each direction from Norfolk. You are welcome, Jane Collar. No, wonderful to be here. Thank you all so much. This is our first time in Peterborough. We've had a lot of fun. We hope you have too. Have you? If we were to be very nice to Tom and his team, would you want us back again in the future?
I wasn't very complete. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Okay, we'll send out a survey afterwards, and watch out for any snarky comments on Archie Williamson. And that just leaves me to say thank you much, everybody. We've got about 30 to 45 minutes left now. There is an opportunity, I believe, to do the tour of the amazing VR facilities here. So do check those out, network with people, and I hope you all gone away with something new. Thank you.